Good evening, students. This is the last video of the chapter Biological Classification, and we are starting with the kingdom Plantae here. So these are the various characteristics of the kingdom Plantae. The first point is eukaryote and chlorophyll containing. This point indicates that all the organisms present in the kingdom Plantae are eukaryotic. That means all the organisms possess a clear, well-defined nuclear membrane, and the organisms also contain chlorophyll as their pigment. The next point is cell wall, and it is made up of cellulose. The cell wall of the kingdom Plantae, of the organisms present in the kingdom Plantae, are made up of the substance cellulose. Example of insectivorous plants are bladderwort and Venus flytrap. So bladderwort and Venus flytrap are the examples of insectivorous plants. That means these plants feed upon various insects. Parasitic plant is cascata. One example of parasitic plant is given. It is known as cascata. Plantae includes algae, bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperms, and angiosperms. Life cycle of plants has two distinct phases: diploid sporophytic phase and haploid gametophytic phase. These are the two phases present in the life cycle of plant kingdom. The first phase is diploid sporophytic phase. The first phase is known as diploid sporophytic phase, and the second phase is known as haploid gametophytic phase. These two phases alternate with each other, and these diploid sporophytic phase and haploid gametophytic phase alternate with each other. So this process is known as alternation of generation. So what is this process known as? It is known as alternation of generation. Then we come to kingdom Animalia. Okay, the first point is heterotrophic, and they are eukaryotic organisms. Heterotrophic means they cannot prepare their own food by themselves. They have to depend on other animals or plants for their food. And they are eukaryotic animals, means they have a well-defined nuclear membrane. They are multicellular, that means they are composed of many cells. Lake cell wall. One very important difference between the plant and the animal kingdom is the presence and absence of cell wall. In plant kingdom, a cell wall is present, but it is not present in animal kingdom. Stored food reserves as glycogen or fat. So in animal kingdoms, in the organisms belonging to the kingdom Animalia, the food which are stored in the form of glycogen or fats. Mode of nutrition is holozoic. Holozoic means ingestion of solid food. Okay. They follow a definite growth pattern and grow into adults that have a definite shape and size. The organisms belonging to the kingdom Animalia follow a definite growth pattern and grow into adults. They follow a definite growth pattern and they grow into adults that have a definite shape and size. That means the adults have a definite shape and size. Higher forms show elaborate sensory and neuromotor mechanism. Higher forms means the animals which are placed in the kingdom Animalia. The higher forms of animals show sensory and neuromotor mechanism. So let me explain this with the help of an example. Okay, suppose we place our hand above a lightning candle. What will happen then? Okay, we will feel the heat, right? This feeling of heat is that we sense the heat. Then automatically what happens is that we bring our hand back from the lighted candle, and this is the neuromotor system working. I think it is clear now. And most of them are capable of locomotion. That means most of the organisms belonging to the animal kingdom can move from one place to another. That is, they're capable of locomotion. The next point is the sexual reproduction is by copulation of male and female followed by embryological development. So, how does the reproduction takes place in animal kingdom? It is taken by the mating of the male and the female parents, and after fusion of the male and the female gametes, it is followed by embryological development. After that, embryo starts developing. Okay. The next is viruses, viroids, and lichens. Let us see what are these. The 5 kingdom classification of Whitaker. There is no mention of the 5 kingdom classification of Whitaker. There is no mention of lichens and some acellular organisms like viruses and viroids. Okay, we studied what are the 5 kingdom system of R.H. Whitaker. The 5 kingdoms are Monera, Protista. Okay, the next is fungi. Okay, then Plantae and Animalia. So in what happens in the 5 kingdom classification, R.H. Whitaker did not mention about the lichens and some acellular organisms like viruses and viroids. That means the lichens, viruses and viroids are not placed anywhere in the 5 kingdom classification. The viruses are non-cellular organisms. Non-cellular means they are not composed of cells, characterized by having an inert crystalline structure outside the living cell. The viruses are characterized by having an inert crystalline structure outside the living cell. Okay. What does the viruses do? They form an inert crystalline structure outside the living cell, means the cell that is the host cell into which they are going to affect. They form an inert crystalline structure outside that particular host cell. Once they infect a cell, once the viruses infect a cell, they take over the machinery of the host cell to replicate themselves, killing the host. Once the viruses infect a healthy cell, then the machinery of the host cell, that is the machinery of the cell which they are infected, they take over the machinery and replicate themselves, and then they produce their copies and they kill the host cell. The name virus, that means venom or poisonous fluid, was given by Pasteur. So who gave the name virus? The name virus was given by Pasteur, and this virus means venom or poisonous fluid. Okay. D.J. Ivanowski in 1892 recognized certain microbes as causal organism of the mosaic disease of tobacco. So in 1892, the scientist D.J. Ivanowski he noticed certain microbes. Microbes means small organisms. He noticed some small organisms as causal organism of the mosaic disease of tobacco. He noticed some small organisms causing the disease, that is the mosaic disease of the plant tobacco, as their causal organisms. That means that particular small organisms cause the disease, that is the mosaic disease of tobacco. M.W. Bazerinek in 1898 demonstrated that the extract of the infected plants of tobacco could cause infection in healthy plants and call the fluid as contagium vivum fluidum or infectious living fluid. Okay, I think this point is clear. That is, in 1898, M.W. Bazarinic was a scientist. What did he do? He extracted the fluid from the infected plants of tobacco. Okay, he extracted the fluid from the infected plants of tobacco, and that fluid caused infection in healthy plants, and he injected that infected fluid into a healthy plant and called that infected fluid that also harm the healthy plants as contagium vivum fluidum. Okay, or it is also known as infectious living fluid. W.M. Stanley in 1935 showed that viruses could be crystallized and the crystals consist largely of proteins. So in 1935, W.M. Stanley stated that viruses consist largely of proteins. They are made up of proteins. Actually, viruses are nucleoproteins. Okay, chemically, viruses are nucleoproteins. They are inert outside their specific host cells. So viruses are inert outside their specific host cells. That means they can't reproduce or replicate themselves when they are outside of the host cell. The last in this slide is genetic material is DNA or RNA. Okay, the genetic material present in a virus cell is DNA or RNA. No virus contain both RNA and DNA. We cannot find both RNA and DNA in a single viral cell. Viruses that infect plant cells have single-stranded RNA. The viruses which infect plant cells have single-stranded RNA. It is clear. Viruses that infect animals have either single or double-stranded RNA or double-stranded DNA viruses. Okay. The protein code called capsid, made of small subunits called capsomeres, protects the nucleic acids. Nucleic acids means DNA or RNA. So there is a protein code called, this protein code is known as capsid, and this protein code is made up of small subunits called capsomeres, and these capsomeres protect the DNA or RNA present in a virus cell. These capsomeres are arranged in helical or polyhedral geometric forms. Here it is given the shape of the capsomeres, that is the code called capsid, and these capsomeres are arranged in helical or polyhedral geometric forms. Okay, viruses causes disease like mumps, smallpox, herpes, and influenza. AIDS in human is also caused by a virus. Okay, AIDS, I think you all have heard the disease known as AIDS. It is caused by the virus human immunodeficiency virus, HIV. So AIDS in human is also caused by a virus, and this virus is known as HIV, that is human immunodeficiency virus. In plants, the symptoms can be mosaic formation, leaf rolling and curling, yellowing and vein clearing, dwarfing and stunted growth. These are the following symptoms by which we can know that the plants are attacked by a virus. The next is viroids. The viroids, it was discovered by T.O. Diener in 1971. These viroids are smaller than viruses. These viroids cause potato spindle tuber disease. This is very important. So, if he were asked that name one disease in plants caused by viroids, then it should be potato spindle tuber disease. Okay. It lack protein code. That means viroids lack protein code. But we have found a protein code called capsid in viruses, right? That protects the nucleic acid. But viroids do not contain protein code. They lack protein code. Viroids have low molecular weight. As they are very small, that means as they are small compared to viruses, so obviously they have low molecular weight as compared to viruses. Lichens. Lichen, it is the symbiotic association between algae and fungi. So when there is an association between algae and fungi, we call this as lichens. Algal component known as phycobiont. When there is the association of algae and fungi, then what does the algae do? The algae and that algal component that forms the association between fungi is known as phycobiont, and that fungal component is known as mycobiont. That means the fungi that forms the association with algae are known as mycobiont. Algae prepare food for fungi, and fungi provides shelter and absorb mineral nutrients to the lichens. Here, both the algae and fungi are in a symbiotic relationship. That means both algae and fungi, when they are together, they both gets benefited. Algae prepare food for the fungi. That means fungi get their food which is prepared by algae, and fungi provide shelter and absorb mineral nutrients to the lichens. And lichens provide shelter to the algae, and they also absorb mineral nutrients to the lichens. That means the fungi provide mineral nutrients to the association, to the complete association of algae and fungi, that is the lichen. Lichens are very good pollution indicators. What does it mean? It means we cannot find lichens in the area where there is pollution. So it is given as lichens are very good pollution indicators. Okay. So students, here we complete the chapter biological classification, and we'll proceed to the next chapters in the next videos. Okay, thank you so much for watching this video.